Greetings and welcome to another Mod of the Month video celebrating the best mods released from Morrowind each month. And this time around we're covering the best mods of March 2016, and yes, I know, we're pretty behind schedule here. Still, we have a lot of catching up to do since we're nearly in November now, and we're about 6 months behind or so? But anyway, we've got some really cool looking mods for you today. March was a pretty active month for the community, with an estimated 57 new mods released from Morrowind, a lot of which were graphical updates and replaces, and based on the online poll we did, you guys selected an interesting mix of new content mods and also graphical replaces for the top 3 spots in our Mod of the Month category. We'll get to more of that in a moment, but real quick, I would just like to point out that you can find a new online poll where you can, vote for the best mods of April 2016 down in the video description below. And, please do consider voting, and we'll hopefully be able to get another video out in less than 2 weeks this time, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up eventually. But regardless, you'll find download links for all the mods shown down in the video description below as well. So let's go ahead and get things started with our mod of the month, which for March is Join the Camonna Tong, the Camonna Tong faction mod by DD4N. And I really hope I'm pronouncing Camonna right, because we're going to be, saying it a lot in this showcase. And this was probably the largest quest mod released in March of 2016, and it's a pretty big mod really. It adds the Camonna Tong as well, the title says, as a joinable faction, with over 40 new quests, which is a ton of content to say the least. But it all starts out actually with a vanilla quest. You have to go through a sort of vanilla quest that was in the original game and deliver a Khajiit slave before you can actually go through and join the Camonna Tong. And likewise, you have to be a Dunmeri, since this is a native crime syndicate, and you can't be a member of the Thieves Guild, of course, since, they're kind of competing organizations, and they hate each other, and, all of that. And in any event, there's actually a few similarities to the Thieves Guild with the Camonna Tong, namely that they have, very similar requirements. They have a lot of sneaking, short blade, and security. Those are all, major skills, as you might expect from a criminal enterprise. And to start out on these new Camonna Tong quests, you're going to need to go to one of a few known hangouts for them, like the Council Club in Balmora or the No Name Club in Vivek. And the way these quests work is that each member of the Camonna Tong will give you one quest at a time, usually some small-time dirty work like stealing a book from the Thieves Guild, and, this is where that sneak skill, really comes in handy, by the way, or breaking into a mansion to kill a witness to a crime, or, something else of that nature. And most of these early gigs don't really, pay that well. They're about average for most faction quests, I think, and the author has done a lot of work to really make this, faction blend in with the rest of the factions that you can, play in vanilla Morrowind. That means a lot of, fairly straightforward dialogue, fetch type, or kill objective quests, at least, early on, and a lot of potential conflicts with other factions. The Thieves Guild is, pretty obvious, but you'll end up, killing or having removed a lot of quest NPCs for Imperial-related factions that'll, probably damage your standing with them. Like there's one quest that involves framing Larius Vero at Moonmoth Fort, and obviously you can't do the Bloodbath quest if you're a member of the Camonna Tong. And one of the things I really like about this mod is that it really, does a good job of blending in, not just with the vanilla quests, but with a lot of the original lore and, sort of background hints about some of the characters on Vvardenfell, so that these, quests do make sense in the context of the vanilla game world. Like, killing some of the Outlanders in these towns, or expanding skooma operations, or other native criminal enterprises, and the author has done just a really nice job of keeping all of the quests sort of, realistic with what you'd expect from the xenophobic and racist Camonna Tong. So it's, perfectly ideal for players who like to roleplay as native Dunmeri, and with over 40 quests and so much content, it's easy to see why this won our Mod of the Month. But moving on to our second choice for Mod of the Month, we have another really fantastic mod, Armors Retexture, Outlander Styles by Tyddy. In terms of overall endorsements and downloads, this was one of the most popular mods released in March of 2016, so it's little wonder that it also made it into our Mod of the Month list here. And basically, just like most of Tyddy's mods, this is a text replacer for, namely the Outlander armor styles of Morrowind. So armor sets like Imperial Legion armor, Iron armor, Steel armor, Orcish armor, Dragonbone armor, Nordic armor, and so on and so forth have had, their textures replaced and updated by this mod. And in this sort of, mini showcase, we won't be, looking at every armor set, obviously, but we will be looking at about 4 or 5 of them to give you guys a pretty good idea of what this mod does and why it's our number 2 pick for the mod of the month. Starting up, we have some Imperial Legion armor, and this is pretty recognizable as an Outlander armor style, and what Tyddy's Replacer does is it basically provides a high detail, high resolution, and I think maybe slightly darker replacer for the Imperial Legion armors here. In particular, you'll notice the shields are especially distinctive, at least to my mind. They kinda, stand out more color-wise. But the chainmail here, as well as the regular Imperial Steel armor sets, do feel, a bit darker, at least in terms of, hue and color saturation. But when you get the camera nice and up close, you can, really make out a lot of detail with these armor replacers. And as you guys probably know by now, since Tyddy has released quite a few replacers over the years, these are, some really very lore-friendly text replacers, like everything else that Tyddy has released, keeping to that, sort of vanilla Morrowind style and theme. And here we can see the Iron armor set, one of the sort of first armor sets you'll probably come across in game, at least at the lower levels, and it does look, pretty good. I'm not a texture expert, as I've said so many times now, but the detail is pretty fantastic here, and it kind of has that sort of rusted quality about it, like the vanilla version. And here's the Orcish armor set. Again, there's not really a whole lot for me to comment on here, just that it has the same sort of vanilla color scheme and a fair amount of detail to it that just, looks really nice. Finally, and remember, this is only a small sampling of all the armors that Tyddy, covers in this mod package. I think this replacer covers about a dozen or more armor sets, but I just wanted to show off one more because it looks, amazing, and that's the Imperial Templar armor that you can see here. Again, there's a fantastic level of detail going on, and all these armor sets, look beautiful with these new textures applied. Though obviously, we've only provided a very small selection here, but suffice to say, the quality of this replacer, speaks for itself, and that's one of the reasons that it came in as our second choice for the mod of the month for March 2016. And last of all, we have our third choice for the mod of the month, which this time around is Macom's Khajiit by Macom. And truth be told, this actually tied with Tyddy's Armor Retexture mod, and they're obviously, both of really high quality. But before I get too much into that, I should, explain a bit about what this mod does. So, much like a lot of Macom's, Races Redone series, this is a pretty cool replacer for the Khajiit of Morrowind. And first and foremost, you'll notice that there's all new heads and hairs for the Khajiits here. And actually, this one replaces the entire Khajiit body, but we'll get into that more in a moment. There's a few other things I want to point out real quick, such as the different head styles here. There are 4 different head styles and 4 different hairstyles for both male and female Khajiits. Making for about 8 head styles and 8 hairstyles in total, which isn't a huge amount, but given the beautiful and high quality of this replacer, I think that can, sort of be forgiven. Plus, there's only so many different faces that you can make for cat people anyway. I know the selection window is, really small here, and we'll get a closer look at these models in a second. But you can, see a striking amount of detail here, really, especially with the eyes. I mean, those eyes just look amazing, and you can also make out, tufts of fur with each head and face style that's, it's just fantastic. Now, real quick, I'd like to, take a look at a few well-known Khajiit characters in the game to see how they look with Macom's, mod installed. And here you can see Ajira from the Mages Guild in Balmora. And here's another one, Jobasha, from the Rare Books shop in Vivek, and this should, kind of give you an idea of how the NPC Khajiits are going to look in your game with this mod installed, and, they look pretty great in my opinion. And finally, we're going to take a little bit of a more detailed look at these Khajiit bodies, and you can see a Khajiit male here, and, just wow. I mean, again, this is just an amazing replacer. I mean, look at the high quality of these bodies here, the tufts of fur, the whiskers, the fantastic looking eyes, and, notice the ears here have a bit of fur coming out on the top, sort of like a, I guess a lynx, maybe? That's actually, one of the hair options, which, again, it looks really cool. And really, I have to say that Macom really outdid himself on this replacer. It's obviously a pretty big change from the vanilla Morrowind style of Khajiit, But it does a lot to, really give this race a more, sort of modern appearance that's perhaps more in line with some of the later Elder Scrolls games like Oblivion or Skyrim. And last of all, I did want to show the female Khajiit body here, and this mod does come with 2 optional versions, a full nudity version and an underwear version, as you can see here, and I do apologize if this is a bit, too revealing. You guys know I always, try to avoid any fan service and nudity on this channel, but I wanted to show off as much of the Khajiit body here as possible, just, show off how much this replacer has changed, and what all it covers, and again, I just have to point out the fantastic level of detail with the fur, and the Khajiit faces, and there's several hairstyles that involve jewelry, like what you see here with the earrings being worn here. And all in all, this is just an amazing replacer, probably one of the best for the Khajiit race, and I'd really highly recommend checking it out, and there's, very clearly a good reason why this was our 3rd pick for the mod of the month. And anyway, that wraps up this mod of the month video. You can, find download links for all of these mods down below in the video description, and you can also find a link to a new online poll where you can, vote for the best mods of April 2016, and we should have the results of that up in a couple of weeks. And anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.